All right, I'm here with Bowie. It's the end of the session, and this was a lot of talking session. This is his roadmap to success, and this is going to be like 15 minutes, so your dad's going to get tired holding that treat up behind the camera to get you a look at it. But we do want everybody to see how handsome you are because you're a good-looking fella. All right, so Bowie, let's start off by how we started this session. So we started the session by meeting outside. So what I did is I left a treat trail. Now, he won't take treats. I wanted to see if he would, but he is so overwhelmed he wouldn't take treats. So I did recommend that the guardians look into fluoxetine, talking to their vet. Fluoxetine is the dog eat Prozac. I'm guessing he's probably going to be on about 5 milligrams, 2.5 to 5, somewhere like that. It's going to take about 4 to 6 weeks to take effect. Now, before you do that, you're going to hang out with me for a little bit at least. Find 2 or 3 activities that you can use to rank his reactivity. Now, we're going to be muddling it a little bit because some of the things we're talking about in this video, like desensitizing him from the sounds of the door, might change his effect. But basically, what I would have you do is have the recording or have your neighbor open and close the door, and then just let him bark. How long does it take for him to stop barking? And I went 3 different occasions. Hey, buddy, I don't need you to bark now. I just was talking about as an example. And then to find 2 or 3 other things, like when you're practicing, it's okay, buddy. If you're practicing another sound or the sight of somebody outside, just find 2 or 3 things that he does a lot. There you go, and that you can help him practice, or you can count. So it could be either how long before he stops barking, or how long before he actually lays down and puts his chin down like he is now. So once you know those indicators at 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and 6 weeks, recreate those and see how he does with the benchmark. And what we should start seeing is some progress. If you're at 7 weeks and you're not seeing any difference, especially if you're also doing the counter conditioning, then you probably need to call your vet and readjust the medication. I have had some clients that have to adjust it 3 or 4 times before they find that right amount. And after you readjust it, you have to wait another 4 weeks. So you really want to kind of, at 4 weeks, start practicing, try the test. The 5th week, then 6th week. If it's the 6th week you're not there, probably need to readjust it. All right, so when I met outside, and the benefit is the dog is coming to me. I'm not invading the dog's home and space. Now, I'm going to do something different here that normally I would not recommend. So if you're watching my videos a lot, this is unique to this dog. They found that if they pick up Bowie and hand him to somebody, as long as he's not protesting as they go through the handing, and they pet him a little bit, after that, he goes and licks and comfortable with them. We did a version of this here, but he was inside. No, I'm not going to let you go over there because you just want to bark at the door. We don't need to bark at the door right now. But what I would have you guys do is have the person, when you go outside, have the person, if you can, sitting on the step, with their feet in the street on the curb, and then let Bowie approach them. And he kind of came up. Did he sniff me at all when you approached? I know. And we're going to let him do that a little bit. Yes, I'm not going to let you bark. Yeah, well, I'll let you bark, but I'm not going to let you run to the door. That didn't work. All right, let's try a circle on the chest. So I was telling the guardians, for behavior modification, what we're looking at is block his ability to I'm going to see if I can take away the sight for it. No, you don't like that either. But basically, when we're modifying a dog's behavior, we want to block them from practicing the unwanted behavior like this, while we simultaneously help him practice the desired behavior. And the guardian's doing a really good job behind the camera, kind of redirecting him. It works to a certain extent, but once the dog gets really barky, he's hysterical, essentially he won't be able to do anything. So if he continues, I'm going to invite one of his guardians to come and grab him and just take him upstairs or take him out of the room because he's close to the door. Well, when he's barking, he's trying to make the thing go away. So I'll have you go over and come over, and we're just take him out, and you just take him upstairs a little bit for a sec, and we're let him kind of chill out. And so when dogs are barking, they're trying to make, or lunging or snapping, they're trying to make the thing go away. We can do the same thing. So what we're doing is we're helping him accomplish his goal without demonstrating the behavior we don't want, which is having him barking at the door. Now, I know it's inconvenient to do this, but again, for about 3 months or so, we want to block his access from practicing while we work on the positive. Now, right here, we could put a little bit of a barrier around the door. I don't know how helpful it is, but I mentioned it, so I want to put it in here as well. When he's outside, he really won't take treats unless he's pretty calm. And the guardian mentioned when he takes him out for the first thing in the morning, it's very quiet. There's not a lot of people out there. He might be still a little sleepy. He does sniff the ground then. And I don't know if you've tried to give him treats then. But we're going to use the Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver, that really high-value treat. So in the morning, when he is sniffing the ground, take note of where he's sniffing. The next day, before you take him out there, leave him in here. Go outside and grab the Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver. Leave a couple of little treats in those areas that he sniffs. And then take him out, come back in, take him out. This is the next day. So hopefully he goes back to the same area and he finds a treat. If you lick it up, that's wonderful progress. If not, the Prozac we talked about should help achieve that, as well as the exercise that's above, which we'll talk about in a minute. So the idea is we want him to practice sniffing around. And if he's calm, you can bring him back down. And you can hold on. I mean, he doesn't have to be in my lap. I'll grab him at the end. And so basically, sniffing is a calming activity for dogs. It also helps them be distracted. So if we can get him practiced at sniffing the ground when he's out at the time of the day where he's calm, and we pair it with some high value treats, hopefully he starts looking for those treats in the future when he goes out and he's got kind of eating some treats and sniffing and being more aware of his environment as opposed to the external stimulus that he's afraid of. Now, his guardians also knows that the protected behavior is mostly in the neighborhood. Now, there's a couple dogs nearby. There's one over there that we heard barking in the video above. There's one over here we didn't hear. Now, if you can, I would ask your neighbors, hey, do you take your dogs for a walk? You know, we had a behaviorist come by and we're trying to work on our dogs barking a little bit. I know he likes to bark at your dogs. I think maybe because he doesn't know your dogs. If you guys walk, could we walk with you? And you might have to walk on the other side of the street. Ideally would be go to a park or a green space where you can walk, where you can kind of, you don't have to, the street kind of makes it be a certain amount of distance. But I've had some where like I'm walking in the middle of the street, if it's safe to do so, and they're walking the sidewalk, and gradually you get closer and closer together. But the dogs don't have to actually interact. All we want them to do is practice being around each other without reacting. And that's something I'm going to repeat, because for a lot of the things that we went over with him, we want him to practice being around them without reacting. He can flip his ears, he can look at it, he can maybe grumble. Grumble is the max I'd want him to do. I prefer not even have grumble. If he barks, that means it's too much. We push too far. So remember, the way you can lower the intensity is by increasing the distance, turning down the volume, or slowing down the speed. So ask yourself, how can I make it easier? And then recreate the scenario where you barked at, and keep on backing up until you find the version where it's easy enough where he can react, where he can be exposed to it without reacting. Then you're giving him treats while he's practicing at that distance or that speed or that volume. And then gradually we turn it up, make the speed faster, or collapse the distance. And gradually you get to the point where he's like walking right next to that dog that was barking, that he barked at, and he doesn't do that anymore. Walking is great because they're moving forward, and that helps dogs process things. Also, there's a lot of distractions, and the leash and the humans are providing the structure. So we're helping him practice being around that other dog without barking. Now, we can set that up for success by making sure he has a little exercise before the walk, but we can set him up for success even more. I like to cheat, is to record the audio of that dog's collar as it's coming out the house and walking past. I guarantee you the dog can hear it. They have much better hearing than we do. So what I would do is I would just have your phone, maybe just open the door and just when your neighbor's going out there, and you want a clean recording. We don't want him tapping around on his toenails or barking or anybody talking, no TV. So it's just that sound. So we get that recording of that. Then you can do some desensitization counter conditioning. You play that sound while he's eating his food on a loop. If he stops eating his food, that means it's too loud. So you keep on playing that or finding a volume until eventually he can, I'm just thinking of something else the Guardian's doing that I can give a tip, until he can eat the whole time while he's eating, hearing that sound. Then we raise it up a little bit up the next meal. Eventually you go to a Bluetooth speaker where it sounds like that dog is running through your living room and he's giant size because it's such a loud, and he is desensitized and ignoring it. Now when you're petting your dog, if you pet your dog fast, you can make him worked up. Petting him slowly. And I usually say about 12 inches for every 1 second. So for him, I'd like to see like a 2 to 3 inch stroke. Now, right now, he's nice and calm. His guardian can pet him from the nape of the neck to the base of the tail along the spine. And I would assign a word for this. This does not mean this is going to calm him down. But if we associate a cue with the behavior and he's going ramped up, we can say, chill. And that's the sound, that's a word that I hear the one time, and then my guardians pet me in these very slow strokes. Only say chill once. They'll pet your dog in slow strokes. Settle, yoga, whatever the word is you want to use. So you're putting it in context. Now, again, this doesn't mean he's going to be calm, but this emulates something that their mother does when they're younger, so it is something a callback that helps them feel a little bit more relaxed. Also, petting a dog in slow circles on his chest can also be relaxing. It's a little bit hard right now because he's wearing a harness, but, and again, if it's fast, which we have a tendency to do, you can make him more ramped up. Okay, so ideally, try to befriend and talk to your neighbors, and usually just say, hey, we're trying to work on our dog's barking, and the person said that we really need to walk around your dog. We don't want to bother you, but if you go for walks, we'd love to. Do you go for walks? Yeah, we usually go at 6:30. Well, can we go with you? If you can, try to, if it's 6:30 is too busy, you might push to see if we can do it at a different time. Yep. And so right there, his body language. His eyes got big, his ears went forward, his head went up, and he closed his mouth. So he gave an indication right before he started barking there. And so that's actually what we'll talk about next, is his body language. So we went over cutoff signals, not in this necessarily order, but cutoff signals for dogs include turning their head away, lowering their head, and turning away, their ears rotating back, licking the lips, refusing to look at you. That's called avoidance. He does a lot of that. Looking at you through the side of their eye, we call that whale eye. Refusing to come to you or moving away from you. Pulling their paw or leaning or walking away from you can also be cutoff signals. Also rolling over and showing the belly is a cutoff signal. I don't think it's one that we need to worry about for him. So remember that when you're petting your dog, the best place to pet is for him. He seemed to like it on his chest as opposed to his chin, but usually here are the best place to pet a dog. You want to avoid reaching over a dog's head to pet them for your initial point of contact. Now, if you're petting the dog here and you're working with that, that's totally fine. It's just when you start off and they offer a cutoff signal, we want to stop. And after a while, when the dog recognizes, when I give the cutoff signal, it stops. I don't have to go to the barking, the lunging, the growling, any of those other behaviors, because people are listening to me. So we often see the lunging and the barking as the apex of it, or as the beginning, but that's actually usually the apex. Usually it starts before that. So like there, when I saw his eyes get stiff, so you see that sort of thing, you can use that pause interrupter. He looks at you, touch, he runs over, touches his nose, your hand. If you do it early, before it gets worked up, usually you can redirect them from whatever it is. Or if you see that happening, maybe you're like, oh, there's something's going to happen. I'm going to pull out some treats that he really likes, and I'm going to let him chew on those treats. Usually for the Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver, I got them over there somewhere, but I chop them into little fine pieces with serrated edge knife. What you might do is cut long little strips, almost like little toothpick strips of that, so you can chew on it a little bit more, and he's eating that longer and longer period of time. So for him, so those are cutoff signals. And so if people want to meet him, just say, hey, if you want to meet him, we ask people to hold their hand out in front of his nose to see if he'll touch his nose to your hand. And you just say, can we meet him? Well, if you want to hold your hand out, if he touches his nose to your hand, then yeah. What if he doesn't touch his nose to my hand? That's his way of saying he'd prefer not to meet you. It seems ridiculous. Who told you that? Well, I have this guy from Doggone Problems. But again, it doesn't really matter if they believe you or not. If you create a safe environment for him, he doesn't have to bark. He doesn't have to lunge or snap or do any of the things that we don't want him to do. So that you managing the situation is really important. Overall body language, I went over how to read that. So I first of all look at the dog's head. Is the nose up or down? Remember, up is good, down is insecure. And they could also be in neutral in the middle. Is the mouth open or closed? Now they can also have a closed mouth. He has a closed mouth right now. He seems pretty relaxed. His eyes, there we go, sleepy eyes. But a lot of times dogs are going from an open mouth and someone catches them, they close their mouth and start staring. That's a big warning. So if you recognize that and then you start sprinkling some treats on the ground, or you move them away, or you do touch, or pause interrupter, or whatever it is, we can get him out of there faster. So once I learned how to read the head, I'm looking at the eyes. Are the eyes big saucers and unblinking with dilated pupils? Those are pretty big classic signs of arousal. Right now he's doing something called sleepy eyes while he's actually asleep. But sleepy eyes are kind of squinty eyes and soft eyes, blinking eyes. That's what we like to see. Dogs staring at something longer than 5 seconds is a warning. So you see him staring for longer than 5 seconds, I'm going to redirect him. So if we can learn to recognize those cutoff signals and other body language, ears rotating back could also be a sign of anxiety when they're pinned back. And when he's on walks, the guardians have noticed that. Other times they're going to be forward and kind of squared off, and that's what we'd like to see, neutral. Are his nostrils flaring? Is he breathing really heavy, or is he holding his breath, or is it breathing normal? So those are ways that I recognize the head. Then I look at, is the hackles up? The hackles is the hair between the shoulders and on the spine near their butt or near the hips. Is that standing up on edge? That's like goose pimples. That doesn't mean he's going to be erupt, but it means he's getting a little bit more worked up. So I'm going to pay attention to that. Is he leaning towards something? Is he leaning away from it? Is his body wiggly and jiggly, or is it stiff and still? Stiff and still is not a good thing. And so then the tail, if it's up, straight, and not moving, that's pretty much flying the flag. That's being very uncomfortable, and you got my full attention. If it's quivering really quick, same sort of thing. If it's a little bit high but moving, it's like I'm aroused, but I could be pushed in a different direction. If this is the dog's head and my shoulders are the spine and this is the tail, if it's in the middle here, that's where I'd like to see it. Now his tail is going up, and when he starts getting calm, you see it start kind of relaxing like this. He's kind of a little bit above or a little bit below when he's relaxed. But just hanging down, that's a pretty relaxed tail as well. If it's going between his legs, it's insecure. Tail tuck is a classic sign of insecurity. So if he shows any signs of uncomfortableness and you make the thing go away, or you take him away from the thing, you manage the situation so he did not have to. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but the more secure that he feels, the less likely he is going to be to act out. All right, so let me see. Now, if you're successful in the morning, getting back to what I was talking about, leaving those treats, then on the afternoon walk, leave a couple of those treats there. See if he'll go and sniff and grab those treats. You're going to come back here, buddy? Yeah. You want to hang out? It's like, I'm going to hang out right here. All right, so if you can, there we go. Let's get you over here. Dad wants you in the shot. Oh, that'll work. That's a good comfy couch, huh? All right. So, and then if he does take those treats in the morning, when you go out in the evening or other times of the day, go put one of those pieces of Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver there. See if he'll eat it later on. If not, I think the video above is gradually going to help him start doing that. I'm not going to talk about it a ton, other than don't practice that too many times a day. Maybe twice each. There's 2 guardians here. Maybe each one practices it twice a day. But if he takes a long time to settle down, if he's pacing, we want to see how long it takes him to get to like a laying down state. So you might the first couple times time it, and then you kind of get a baseline. He's usually there about a minute. Then it goes to like 3 minutes. Then maybe we back it down. Instead of doing 4 times a day, we do it 3 times a day. Hey, buddy, your mom does not want you jumping down. So if you want to get down, I will go ahead and give you the elevator ride down. All right. So let me see what else. So yeah, for this one, keep it short, 1 to 2 minute practice sessions. And then after this, make sure you do something he really enjoys. And if there's been a big day with a lot of stuff going on, that might be something we skipped. There's a lot of sounds outside. So I heard a little bit of a grumble. That would be the time to try to use the pause interrupter. Speaking of the pause interrupter, you want to find a treat that he likes. Treat. Take a couple steps. Treat. Practice that around your house. So when he hears that sound, that's going to get him to look. And you want a loading exercise. Basically, I usually do that about 6 times with about 12 to 20 treats. Or I do it until when I make the kissing sound, he stops and looks at me, apart from any hardcore stimulus. After a while, then you should be able to use that to redirect him. Yeah, you're going to click yourself, huh, buddy? Now, when we do have guests that come in, licking and chewing for dogs release the feel-good endorphins. So what I'd like the guardians to do is get a lick mat and put some cream cheese on it. You don't have to smear the whole thing. Put it by all the little grooves or whatever, and then put it over there. And so we're pairing. When the guest comes over, I meet him outside. We go for a little walk. I guess I didn't finish that up. Halfway through the walk, have the guest take the leash. And normally I ask the dog to just sit and lay down and do stuff like that to get treats. I don't think he's going to want to do that. I would have some Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver just to see if he'll take one. Hopefully, as we're working on this stuff, you do get to the point where he will take some of those. Great. That's an indicator he feels comfortable. But just even having the person carrying the leash with them. So when you're on the walk, maybe now that I think about for your situation, I would go for maybe like 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes of a walk. Then you pick him up, hand him to the person, provided he doesn't wiggle. Person, gives him some nice, easy pets. Tell him where he likes to take to be petted, and then the person puts him down, and the person at that point holds the leash and brings him back home. You're all walking together, but he's holding the leash. Now, if the person doesn't want to hold the leash, you could also do the thing that I did. He likes to pull to get back home. So what you could do is let him be walking out here, so he's walking right next to your guest, and then you're walking essentially behind because he walks to the extent of the leash. So now he's practicing walking next to the guest. Tell your guest, don't look at him. Try to avoid direct eye contact. Don't try to pet him. until he comes up. He's coming up a couple times on his own, or he's leaning against you. At that point, hold your hand out to it in front of him. If he touches you with the nose, then start scratching him on his chest. If he likes to, then you can pet him in different places. But a lot of people want to just pet immediately, and I don't think that he wants that. So letting him call the shots makes him feel comfortable. Practice your hand targeting to get to the point where you can do that for like 15 feet away. When guests come over, after you meet them outside and they come inside, you can play the hand targeting game. You guys play for it first, and so you get him warmed up, and then he does it with that person. If he doesn't come to that person, he's giving you a cutoff signal. I don't feel comfortable enough meeting that guest. We don't push it. And that's why I also wanted you to teach him how to play fetch. Or how to play catch, excuse me. So when you're playing catch, if he's here with me, the other person throws a treat, makes it such a good throw, all he has to do is open his mouth. But if it hits the nose and falls down, I pick it up and I give it back to the person. So the only way he can get it is by snagging it out of the air. And so this way, this is another game that your guest can play with him, and he gets to moderate whatever distance he wants. Now, the other thing I would probably do is I would try to incorporate, since he likes to play catch or fetch, play fetch with him. And so have your guests come in and play fetch. So again, we're trying to build positive interactions. All right. We also went over celebrating and what I call manners. Celebrating is, again, that operant conditioning. Every time he does any desired right there, he gave eye contact, yes, and pet, and try to pet under the chin. Sitting, laying down, coming to you, going to the dog bed, eye contact, drinking water, pooping, dropping a ball, anything that's a desired behavior, when he does them on his own, say your marker word and pet him under his chest. And if you see your partner misses it, point at them and say, celebrate. And that means they just go, yes, and pet him. You don't even know what it is. After a while, you'll get in the habit of doing this. He'll just walk up to you and say, yes. He lays down, yes. And after a while, he knows these are the things my humans like me doing. They don't need me to be the guard dog. Now, he's not going to just say, I'm going to stop being a guard dog right away. You're going to have to take that position from him. And we're going to do that by orchestrating scenarios where he gets rewarded for things we want, doesn't have the ability to do things we don't want, while we simultaneously do things to help him build up confidence and self-esteem. Speaking of which, I'd like to see the guardians train him to do a couple more cues. I like to see my client dogs that are fearful know at least 10 different separate cues really well, where I can say, sit, and the dog sits, because dogs can read lips. A lot of times when they say sit, we're doing a motion and the lure, all this stuff at the same time, and the dog's actually responding to this. So if I don't move at all and I just say sit, and he can't see my mouth, and the dog sits, I know it has the verbal cue. So that might be something you guys can even brush up on basic stuff, and you can do that same sort of thing in the video we did at the door. Walk around your house, take a couple steps, sit, yeah, click, treat. Take a more step, down, click, treat. Touch, click, treat. So he's practicing listening to you all over the place, and you're paying off, and you're saying the marker word, so I know what's going on. The one thing the guardians ask what they could do, I think that they've gotten a little bit out of a habit of using that marker word. Some people, and technically once your dog's an adult, you can stop using it, but I find it just really helpful. My dogs are 7 and 10. I use the marker word all the time. All right, so celebrating is when he offers a behavior that you like. And again, I would celebrate stretching. Since he does that, I would celebrate the shake it off. And if you can anticipate it, then you must say the cue before. So if he looks like he's about to shake it off, say, what's her name? Taylor, or Taylor Swift, and he shakes it off. And again, the guardian laughed at that, but dogs can come up with, they read facial expressions. So I'd like the guardians, when they're introducing new cues, to find a couple fun, cute, insider joke cues for it. Maybe meatloaf means go eat your food. Splat means lay down, or things like that. Something's going to make people laugh. All right, so celebrating is when the dog does it. Manners is if the dog nudges you, paws at you, barks at you, does something to ask for attention that's not in the most polite way. Is it bad to pet a dog? Of course not, never. But whatever your dog's doing right before you pet them is what you're reinforcing. So dog comes up and nudges you and you pet them, you're telling the dog, nudging me is a great way to get me to pet you. What he's saying is, I would like some attention. I'd like him to say, come and sit in front of you and saying, I'm sitting, can I please have some attention? As opposed to sticking his nose under and say, give me your attention. And he's not being rude when he does that, but that's just kind of how people see it. So the more that he feels like I have to ask my humans for something versus telling them, you're shifting the leader-follower dynamic. And so that's really important. And it's, if you get in the habit of doing both these things, and manners is the word that I use. So if he's nudging me and I'm petting him, or he's jumping up on me, I'm petting him, my partner sees it and says, manners, I would stop petting, say sit one time. If he sits, I say, pet him under his, say yes, and pet him under his chin or on his chest. And then I can tell my partner, I asked him to sit, and I let him climb up on me. That's okay, but thank you I do forget to do that. But if I tell him to sit once and he doesn't do it, I just detach, go back to watching TV, pottery, or whatever it was I was doing at the time. I'm not going to ask for it multiple times. That's the illustration of cortisol. He's really twitchy, just jumped with a little sound. So, and I'd like you guys, there's a technique called nothing in life is free. You guys might want to adopt that for a month or two. And there we go. Perfect. So now, 7, 8, 9 barks because we interrupted it. Now, probably Guardian had to get up and all that. She probably was being quieter because we've done this. But before that, if he barks only 28 times, that's 28 practices. So that's an important part of it. God, I'm constantly just taking him away. That's okay, because that's just in the short term, you're preventing him from practicing getting worse or getting better at it, which is worse for us. All right, so say manners and celebrate to each other and pet him for those things. And again, for nothing in life is free. If you just want to pet him, I'd like you to ask him to sit, touch, or do something for you to help even wider, make that leader-follower dynamic a little bit wider. Okay, let me see. There's a sight outside the window, and that causes him to get reactive. What, again, I would do is get the Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver or something that's hot, be like at where your dishwasher is, and then have somebody outside, and it's preferably not one of you, because I think if he knows that both of you aren't here, that something is afoot. And you could have somebody just like crouching down and then just kind of pop up. He sees their head and they pop back down. So you're making the exposure so limited, and it goes away before he gets a chance to bark. And we're feeding him treats the whole time while he's looking at it. It's not just he looks and he gets a treat. I want him eating the treat, then the head comes up, and then the head disappears, and the treat stops. So I'm only having the treat while I'm looking at the stimulus. When the stimulus disappears, the treat disappears. I like the treat so we can have more stimulus, is eventually where you want to go. Now, that's as far away as you can go, is if you're at your dishwasher. But after you do, maybe you just pop up and then go down. Then after a while, you pop up and you keep your head there for 2 seconds before you pop down. 4 seconds. Eventually, you can have the head up there for like 10 seconds. He's not doing it. Now it moves a little bit. That's you're making it a little bit more difficult. So one of the concepts I want you to think of is, whatever the activity is, how can I parcel it up into small segments? And we're going to practice segment 1 as easy as we need to, where he doesn't react. Then we're going to make segment 1 as hard and as difficult as we can, gradually, till it's the most intense version. Then we do segment 2. Same thing. We start very easy, make it strong. And then eventually, once we've done all of them individually, we do segment 1 and segment 2 together as the very easy one. And we gradually increase those. It is a slow, methodical process. But this is the way you do it. This happened organically over time. He's a COVID dog. So this stuff happened. He saw somebody, like, bare his teeth at him, and they went away. And he's like, okay, now I heard him. Now I'm going to chortle a little bit. Now I'm going to growl. Now I'm going to do this. This gradually happened over time. We just don't realize it at the time when it's happening. So it's going to be mindful. And the Guardians here have done a really good job. They've reached out for help multiple times to different people. They've looked at a lot of videos. The problem is it doesn't come labeled as these people are punishment trainers and these are not punishment trainers. And also the stuff that I do doesn't happen immediately. And that can be very demoralizing. And so having those benchmarks, like I mentioned, can be really helpful in keeping track. I didn't talk about this during the session, but you might keep a little journal of all the things you're working on. How many barks? How long does it take him to settle down? So you start seeing that iteration, and it makes you feel like you are making the progress that you actually are. Let me see. One of the problems he has is when he's in the car now, when people approach, he's starting to bark at them. So this is kind of the same version of exercise I use for resource guarding. Let's say that I'm in the car with, don't tell me, now I'm doing a complete blank, but it'll come back to me. His name, Bowie. I don't know. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, so let's say that I'm in the car with Bowie and somebody approaches us, and when they get to 20 feet, Bowie starts barking at them. So what I would do is recognize 20 feet is his meter. I would try to practice in an area, not in your parking garage and not in your area, but an area there's not a lot of kids and crazy sounds and whatnot going on. And so basically I find a quiet area like that and I recruit a friend. Maybe I drive to my friend's house. And my friend come around the corner, which is like 40 feet away. And he walks from 40 feet. Let's say it was 20 feet when he reacts. So maybe my buddy stops at 25 feet. While he's approaching, I'm feeding treats as fast as I can get him into his mouth. And then as soon as my buddy gets to like 25 feet, he turns and walks away. I'm stopping, the person's stopping their approach before Bowie reacts. And when you're doing counter conditioning and desensitization, that is the most important thing. He can't react. If he reacts, all the work you did before is really not very effective. So the person at 20 feet, he barked, so we had him go away, wait for Bowie to reset. When Bowie's reset, then we have the person come around the corner and stops at 5 feet before that point. And he's getting treats, and then he turns and walks away, goes out of sight. We repeat that 3 or 4 times. Ideally, you want to approach it from this angle, then from this angle, then from this angle. You want to have as many different varieties as you can. But we're all stopping at 25 feet. Then after we do maybe two of those from each angle, now we go to 24 feet. And we do all those angles. Then 23 feet, 22 feet, 21 feet. And gradually you're going to collapse that distance. But remember, dog behavior modification is not a linear process. So you're going to have a day where suddenly it gets worse. Just keep trying it. And then again, remember, there's the extinction burst. Extinction is the end. Eyes just got really big right there. So do you have any of that crack? The sewage freeze by beef liver. So that's the thing, is if you can recognize that, there you go. And yeah, break it a little piece and then put it on your, there you go. So there his eyes got big. He was looking at it. And that's why you might not have a little caches of these treats all over the place. So dad redirected him. He laid his head down. He's not sleepy eyes, but he's blinky eyes. And he's not breathing heavy, and he's not looking at the door. So that's a microcosm of what you're going to be doing. And the problem is you're not always in your lap. You're working and doing other stuff. That's why we want to block and have the maintenance stuff going on. So let's talk about that. So I would probably get some white paper and do like the first like 4 or 5 rows of the divider there and put it on this side so he can't scratch it off. Because right now it's kind of quasi-split level, so when he's over there, he can look, and there's a wall out front, but because he has more elevation over there, he can look over it. So if you just block that, the last 4 runs, you're never going to notice it. He won't be able to see outside, because every time he sees it, something, he barks and it goes away. He thinks his barking made it go away. And then I would probably, if you can, and I go and it's a little bit more challenging, get something where you can extend, something that just comes up a little bit. Doesn't have to be very tall, maybe about 6 or 8 inches above the retaining wall outside your balcony. Now the exercise, so he can't see what's going on. Make a recording of all of the sounds, the things that he responds to. I started talking about, I don't know if I completed my circle on the other one. For the dogs, walking the dogs is great, but getting that audio recording and playing that until it sounds like the dog's in there. I did talk about that. But that makes the next step easier. You've already taken a portion of that and folded it into a positive realm. Now you're just going to grab more and more portions of that. Again, slowly, without him reacting. All right, let me see. What else do we go over? Exercise. Playing fetch is something I like doing. I would try to incorporate in the house. Outside, I don't mind if you do it the way you're doing it now. But in the house, let's incorporate a little structure. Right now, they have to pull the object out of his mouth. You're playing fetch. He pulls it, brings you the thing. Hold the treat out to his nose. Don't say anything. His lips. As soon as he drops it, say yes. Put it in there, and then you can pick it up. And then I tell the dog to sit 1 time. If he doesn't sit, back to watching TV. And then if he sits within a couple seconds after that, I might do it then. But normally, you got to do it when I tell you. You got about 3 seconds. If not, I'm on to the next thing. So if he sits, then I say yes for the sit. And the reward is I throw the ball. Now, as I throw the ball, I always want to have the cue come at the same time. So I'd say fetch. He runs and grabs it, grabs the ball, comes back to me. I hold the treat out. After a while, he'll come over and he'll spit the ball at it. He won't hold it in his mouth anymore. But again, I ask for a sit. And when he sits, yes, and I throw it. But eventually, when he's spitting out right away, then he's spitting around and say sit. When he sits, then I would pick up the ball. And then if he gets up, I tell him to sit again. When he sits, yes, and I throw it. But eventually, you want to have him come over, spit out the ball, sit down. You pick up the ball. And wait 5, 7 seconds. Then you throw it. Maybe next time it's 2 seconds. Next time it's 20 seconds. So he's practicing ramping himself up and then calming himself down. And if the dogs don't practice impulse control, there's no way that they can not bark at the door, not run away, not jump, not bark, bite, or whatever it is. So incorporating into a game that he already likes to do is pretty easy because you're not adding a lot of extra work for you. It's just an extra couple seconds. And again, if you're quick, if you're consistent about it, after a while, he'll just start doing it for you. Playing tug of war is a great way to burn energy. Just don't let his energy level get too high. Scent work gets into the mental stimulation things. Fetch obviously is a good way to do as well. And I would use the number of fetches before, during things. So you might notice that like before the door activity, we need so many fetches and after exercise, he always needs 10 minutes of rest before the next thing happens. Otherwise, he'll be worse behaved. He's a Dachshund. He doesn't have a super big one. But dogs with a big barrel chest, we don't want to exercise them within about an hour after they're eating. Their stomach is not attached to something. It can flip over, pressurize. Sometimes it can explode. So you don't want to have a dog with a heavy stomach. Now, if he's walking, that's okay, but it's a lot of lateral movement. So don't feed him and play fetch. All right, and so there's also mental stimulation. Getting him out of snuffle mat and feeding him out of snuffle mat would be a great way for him to get some energy because he's a scent dog and because being outside scares him. So this is a way where we can get him some exercise without having to trigger the thing that he doesn't necessarily like. You can also get, I like the Omega Paw Large Tricky Treat Ball. You can put his kibble in there. You'll have to roll it the first couple times. When you roll it and he licks up the treat, nibble. Or say yes. And then roll it a couple times. It doesn't take very long. After a while, he's nudging that thing around. And there's also enrichment toys. So Google DIY enrichment, like the toilet paper tube. Take a piece, or the paper towel tube. Paper towel, maybe a little piece. Take a piece of kibble, crumple it up in there, shove it in there, and shove 12 of those, 15 of those in there. After a while, he's got to go grab that tube, take the toilet paper out, open it up. That gives him something to do. And let me see. When you have guests come over, lick mat. Make sure you use the lick mat or give him something to chew on so that he can have those positive endorphins released. Look at the box stores for the cream cheese in those little individual packets. And then when you have somebody come in the house, I'm kind of describing this not all together, so I apologize not grouping it together. But you meet the person outside, you go for you go for a little walk, then you hand them to them. Maybe they carry them for a dozen paces or whatever. Put them down, they carry the walk, come back, and they have the leash. And when you come back in, have some cream cheese. And just have it sitting here in like a spoon, whatever. And so if he starts barking, you can try that. You could try the cream cheese with the barking at the sounds of the door too. That might be something that works. It works really, really well. It worked for great success for some dogs. And I like to put the spoon in the freezer with the cream cheese on it to kind of make it congeal a little bit harder, more work for the dog. But again, it's another nice thing you can do. Now you can also do that where you have your guest. Maybe you're doing that with counter conditioning over the wall. So you take the partition down, and he's licking cream cheese while he's looking at somebody walking past. And try it every once in a while, instead of just the head popping up, have him walk while he's looking at cream cheese. He might lick that whole thing, and it hasn't passed 7 or 8 times. That's wonderful practice. Eventually, then we have the door open. So maybe you go over and you open the door. You're up there with him, and he's licking the cream cheese. You just open the door. You see somebody, he's licking, and close the door, and you take the cream cheese away. Then cream cheese, door opens. So the person's not coming in. We're just presenting the sight of a person far enough away for him not to react and creating a positive result because he likes the cream cheese. After a while, you can have the person take one step in and then exit and close the door. So you have a reset each time. And so gradually the person comes in and they come and sit here and they get up and leave and close the door. And he's licking the cream cheese. What I found is that after a certain amount of exposure, then the dog's like, oh, he's fine. So you might find 2 cream cheese spoons and he's okay. But then when he comes down here, he might need to be picked up. We're going to customize things as we need to. But the idea is, again, to pack positive experience on top of other ones. But again, the main thing for him, he can't react when we're doing this stuff. So create structures. And if you can't control everything, call it early. Like the video above, I was saying, if you're doing that one and then you see one of your neighbors is walking up behind you, your dog hasn't seen it, exit the exercise first. You want to exit before he barks or whatever because we want to have that clean, good ending. Also, I talked about incorporating some rules. So there's a technique, everything in life is free. I don't think he needs to go that extreme, but I would like to see the guardians asking him to sit or touch or lay down before they pet him, before they put his leash on, before they prepare his food, before they invite him on the bed. Anything that he can't do so that, better rules where he can do them himself and he chooses not to. But the idea is that's why he gets more and more interactions with people with practicing that. Let me see what else. Trying to think, is there anything else that we covered that you want me to go over? That's it? Okay. Now, again, it's not, you're going to have extinction bursts and you're going to have off days. consistency is key. So try to, watch this video like once a week, every Sunday, until when you watch it, everything's down. But try to, when you go through, watch it again, try to pick apart and kind of group all the things together. And like, okay, this week we're going to work on these things. And then next week, not work on something else. Work on the things until you have them done. And then start moving in. And maybe you start 3 things and 2 of them you get done, one's lingering. Well, keep it to more on that one and then add in 2 more. So you're going to kind of have an ebb and flow back and forth. But this one, I was just thinking for this, you could do it there, but you had a really good idea of practicing on the patio is also a great place to do it. So you could maybe practice a little bit there, and you can do the same thing with a screen door, opening it and let him go in and out. But the idea is that we want him to go out there and he'll touch or do whatever it is. But when we're doing that exercise, try to use the clicker. Now, for the clicker, don't hold it right next to his ear the first couple times. Keep it behind it. Click, treat, click, treat. After a while, you can hold it wherever it's a positive. But when you click, he should be able to look at you. If he doesn't, then you need to go back to loading it. Now, so when you have questions or if you have setbacks or things don't work, stop working, text me or call me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. In his case, I'm expecting we're probably going to need to talk at least once or twice a week for the next 4, 8, 12 weeks until his meds kick in. But I'm really hoping his meds are going to really amplify the efforts and that you guys are putting in and give you more progress. But again, try to come up with a couple of those baseline experiments so you know how long it takes him before he stops barking or before he lays down. That way you kind of have an indicator because it's sometimes just so subjective. Is he doing well or not? Anything else you want me to add, buddy? It's like, yeah, I don't like it when people that I don't know give me direct eye contact. That was a trigger for him. So tell your friends especially not to look at him initially. And when your friends come over, when you're practicing these things, pick your friends that will listen to you. We all have that friend that won't listen. That's a person you call at the end. We want the people who are listening, so we're going to set him up for success. All right, well, I'm going to have the guardian bring him over here and put him in my lap again so we can end with the positive Mr. Bowie. Yes, Mr. Bowie. Yes, Ziggy Stardust himself. He's not actually named after David Bowie, but it's kind of related. Well, this is my buddy Bowie. I want some good Bowie kisses. I was going to say he's licking a very long nose. So probably the biggest nose he's ever licked. No, but I think his is probably a little bit longer. Bowie. Well, this is my buddy Bowie, and this is Bowie's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it. Right, Bowie? That's right.